This was supposed to be Isabel Stenzel's Sunday with us. You might remember Isabel, the cystic fibrosis patient with the double lung transplant who'd lost her twin sister to cancer and wrote a book about it all called The Power of Two. She's been through so much in her life and is so calm and grounded. We, the church, met her through a grief support group at Mission Hospice that she led that was attended by Jan and Denise and Astrid and Lisa. So she preached for us last year sometime, and we wanted her to come back. So about 10 days ago, Denise got an email from her and sent it on to me. And as I read it, I was so struck by her calm in the face of this next chapter of her life. I thought I should just share this email with the church. It's a perfect example of exactly what she was going to talk about, because the title of her message was going to be Coping with the Uninvited. So here's her email. Hello, dear Denise. You are amazing to remember this milestone of mine. She had just turned 50, which for a CF patient, cystic fibrosis, is amazing to live that long. How kind of you. I hope you had a wonderful Christmas holiday and Happy New Year to you. I hope you were with people you love and you and Dora are staying healthy. I hate to do this. As of yesterday, I was informed that I need surgery and the date is set for January 20th. I will have a hospital stay for 5 to 6 days afterwards. I was told that my eye cancer is back, and I knew this was coming, but it has all been confirmed yesterday. So I'm afraid I need to reschedule my sermon. I'm so sorry. This was not in the plan. But you know, when we make plans, God sometimes laughs. I could try in April or May when my radiation is finished. I may look a whole lot different then, but I will have much more material on fear and hope to discuss. I would indeed appreciate prayers as I mourn the loss of my eye and this transition to my face. This is all a result of immunosuppression, an ironic reward after living this long with my transplant. Life is something else. Still, I am grateful to be here, to breathe, to do the work I'm doing, and I have to take what comes. And then she signs off. So I made a mental note to pray for Isabel on the 20th, to talk to Marilyn about what we wanted to do on Sunday the 23rd, and I kept reading my email. Almost the very next message was my usual daily peace quote from Sherry Huber's Living Compassion organization. You might remember Sherry Huber. She came to preach for us 3 or 4 years ago, because she's just down in Menlo Park. Marvelous Buddhist teacher. But the quote, so there's a quote that comes every day from her organization, and this particular day it was from Pema Chodron, who's a well-known Buddhist teacher and author. And she writes, "We think that the point is to pass the test or overcome the problem, but the truth is that things don't really get solved. They come together and they fall apart. Then they come together again and they fall apart again. It's just like that. The healing comes from letting there be room for all of this to happen. Room for grief, for relief, for misery, for joy." It reminded me a lot of Eckhart Tolle and how he talks about putting space around it. Whoa, I thought, that's weird. Here's another answer to the question of coping with the uninvited. I wonder what would happen if I just watched my incoming email for the next 2 days to see what else shows up. So that became this morning's message. It is literally 3 days worth of the email that answered this question. I didn't plan it. It's just what showed up. And the question was, how do you cope with the uninvited? While I was waiting for these answers, I thought I should at least see what the Bible has to say, right? So let me think. What Bible stories involve people coping with the uninvited? Basically, it's all of them, right? I mean, Abraham didn't ask to be called out of Ur of the Chaldees, and Noah didn't ask for the flood, and David didn't ask to be made king, and on and on and on. The Bible is mostly stories of how people cope with the uninvited. And mostly they all accepted their assignment, right? Noah built that ark. Mary had that baby. They just did it. If they went through anger and denial and bargaining and depression on their way to acceptance, we don't hear about it. Except for Jonah. What does Jonah do when God tells him to go to Nineveh? He runs away. It is such a human response. Haven't we all tried to squirm out of that uninvited thing at our front door? Tried to pretend it wasn't ringing the bell. In the end, just like Jonah, we have to answer the door. And he does, of course, eventually go to Nineveh, but he has some adventures on the way. The next day's email brought another answer. In the daily devotional for that day. The daily devotional is it's a regular email from the UCC's Pilgrim Press that is just a little Bible verse and a commentary written by a minister. And they've got a stable of, 12 or 15 ministers that write these things. A few of them are really good authors. And some of them are not, but that's okay. I mean, different people like different kinds of things. But this day happened to be a perfect answer to the question, how do you cope with the uninvited? It was written by a DOC pastor in New York City named Kaji Dusha. And she's writing, the verse that she chose was from Psalm 46, be still and know that I am God. So here's what the daily devotional was for that day. I experienced my first earthquake when I lived in California. Y'all, earthquakes are not in my wheelhouse. I come from land where people move, not the ground. But at 1:05 a.m. that night, as I looked at my sleeping child a few feet away, my house shook. 15 seconds later, when everything returned to stillness, my hands were still shaking as I freaked out. When I shared my discomfort with others, they reminded me, this is what we sign up for when we live in California. It was really a very moderate shake. Meanwhile, I couldn't understand how the rest of them took this so calmly. My house shook. Why would this feel normal? Perhaps because it is. The earth shakes all the time. Some of us just tend to live on more stable ground and do not perceive the movement. But for many, ground shifts are a daily reality. This is what it means to be poor, what it means to live without a safety net. What incredible privilege I enjoy to be lulled into the perception that the ground on which I stand is firm. Well, maybe it is. Maybe that's what our faith offers us, solid ground in the midst of a shaky earth. But, y'all, when our earth rocks, what do we do? As I ran through the list of what experts recommend we do in an earthquake, I realized that I was already doing the most important thing, holding still. On the floor, just a few feet away from my blissfully sleeping daughter, I returned to the most helpful thing I could do in the safest place I could be during an earthquake. I prayed. Be still indeed. In the stillness we know God when we need God most. Yep, I said that one goes on the list. That's how you cope with the uninvited. Get safe and pray. Okay. Next day's email brought two more. There was a blurb from the publishing house Sounds True. Some of you may have read some of their books or webinars, CDs. They publish all kinds of things and generally spiritual topics. But there was an announcement of a new podcast from David Kessler about his book, Finding Meaning, the Sixth Stage of Grief. Kessler was a friend of and a co-author with Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, so a bit of a grief expert. And the lead quote in this blurb that was what constituted the email said, "One of the big things I had to learn in meaning making was that it's not about the death. There is no meaning in a horrible death, or a cancer death, or a pandemic death, or a murder, or a tragedy, or trauma. Meaning is in us. Meaning is what we do afterward. People often think there's no way to heal from severe loss. I believe that's not true. You heal when you can remember those who have died with more love than pain, when you find a way to create meaning in your own life in a way that will honor theirs." Making meaning. And then in that same email stream was another really lovely daily devotional. This one was written by one of my short list of favorite authors, Molly Baskett, who's the senior pastor over at First Church in Berkeley. And this is what she wrote on that particular day. Last Thursday, the singer Bobby McFerrin, the hero of the late 80s #1 hit Don't Worry, Be Happy, Bobby McFerrin was singing at my church. The occasion, a hippie 12-hour sing-along on the penultimate day of the year called Sing for Your Life. A small group of us, masked and tested, stood on the chancel and filled the sanctuary with nonsense sounds. We matched pitch, found harmonies, introduced discordant notes, took things in wild new directions, or just swayed to the music like insane sea anemones. Bobby, who led us, is 71 now. He is slender and moves slowly because of the Parkinson's that has been gradually consuming him. His eyes have a 100-yard stare, but every once in a while the slackness of his face erupts into the impish visage of yore. He doesn't have the vocal range he once did, but he's still got the chops, a wild range of syllables and tones that froth up from the leviathan depths of the ocean within him, each of them starting a conversation. At one point, he paused the music, cupped the mic, and said slyly, "Anyone have any questions? No, anyone have any answers they want questioned? Anyone have any answers they want questioned?" My teenage son raised his hand. "I know how much Parkinson's is taking away from you because I've seen it ravage my aunt who was once so independent. How do you find your fire?" Bobby answered, "I get up every day and I sing. I sing while I feed the dog. I sing while I get my wife breakfast, slowly. I sing because I have to. I still have so much music inside me." So here's my list so far, my answers. Just 3 days of email, that's all I did. My answers to how do you cope with the uninvited. Isabel remembers to be grateful. Pema Chodron makes room for it. Jonah runs away from it. Kaji Dusha prays. David Kessler moves from acceptance to making meaning. Bobby McFerrin sings. Answers as different as the people, and yet gets them to the same place of acceptance. Well, the next day I happened to be talking to Jan, and she reminded me about Ann Kiefer. Do you remember Ann Kiefer, the author of Gifts of the Dark Angel? She preached for us. She was one of our very first Zoom preachers when lockdown started. She zoomed in from Walnut Creek. She wrote a poem that Jan still finds very powerful called The Thing You Didn't Want. So that's what I'm going to end with, is Ann Kiefer's poem. When the thing you didn't want comes pounding on your door and you think to pretend you are not home, you will not be spared. The thing you didn't want will walk through your locked door like wood is air. Your protections and protestations will have no meaning. And you will stand trembling before the thing you didn't want and say, you can't have it. You've come to the wrong house. There must be a mistake. But the thing you didn't want will be immovable, inevitable, looming, cold. There is only one thing you can do then. Invite it in, the thing you didn't want. Lay the table where the sun can spare some light and warmth for you. Bring coffee, tea, cookies, cake, anything your fumbling hands can offer. Now sit down at your own table with your own cups and plates, your pen and paper, and talk to the thing you didn't want. Though your eyes run red and your teeth break and crumble on your rage or anguish, you must ask the thing you didn't want what it wants, what you need to know, what you'll have to do to work with it. Write down your every question, its every answer. You may think you won't know what questions to ask or how the thing you didn't want will answer, but you will. You will imagine it, make it up, write it down. The words will come from a deeper place than you knew you could reach. And there at your table, in the light, the thing you didn't want may begin to reveal that it is a shapeshifter. You may sense subtleties in its form and being, a new malleability in you. You cannot force the thing you didn't want to leave the house of your once seemingly inviolate self. You will only terrify and exhaust yourself with struggle. Expand as you can, learning to live into this. Give the thing you didn't want your yes. Make something of it. As you can, make it your way shower, guru, sensei, teacher. In some strange, unthought for way, it will, in turn, make something more of you.